Hey, and welcome to another edition of our podcast. This is Colin Meeks with Maryland Financial Advocates. I am with
Ryan Stark.
And we are sort of going solo today. We get a lot of interest from our podcast and the webinars and videos that we do. And we get calls from people with questions all the time, finding out, just looking to pick our brains about various topics that we talk about. And what's kind of funny about our business is Ryan and I always try to figure out what drives people to take that step to pick up the phone and make a call to us, because financial planning is not like doing your income taxes where there's a strict deadline every year. There's no law that says you have to have a financial plan, and a lot of people just sort of are reactionary in that they just never do one. So I want to go through a quick case that Ryan and I are dealing with right now. And it sort of answers a lot of those questions of what drives people to do what they do, and also how we're able to help. So a couple weeks ago, I got a call from a person, a lady who is getting close to retirement, or actually at this point she is retired now, and she just had a real easy question about which pension option she should take. And talking to her and trying to figure out how I might be able to help her back and forth, it turns out that she's like, well, why don't I just come in and talk to you guys? So Ryan and I set the appointment up, and her husband came in, and I was under the impression that she really just had that one issue that she was interested in. So we'll take it from there. You remember these folks, right, Ryan?
I do, yes I do.
So as it's kind of weird in today's day and age that somebody actually even has a pension, because a lot of people move around from job to job, and companies aren't offering pensions anymore, so they're sort of going by the wayside. In my 20-some years of doing this, I've dealt a lot with looking at pensions for people, so I was kind of excited to actually see the pension. So she was more interested, or as interested in, what option should I take with the pension. So our process, Ryan, why don't you describe our initial process first, and then I'll get into the details.
Our process is pretty simple. We like to take the first meeting of our two-meeting initial meeting process as like a first date. So we sit down, we take all your information, we get everything you're willing to give us in terms to answer that question that you had. But really, as financial planners, we have more of a process than we're looking for products to fit in like puzzle pieces. So you may come in with one question, and we may ask you questions that bring up other things. So either way, those first two meetings are for us to get to know you, for you to get to know us, and to give us a chance to provide you as much value as possible in two meetings, so that hopefully you want to work with us in the long run. And we do charge $300 to do that, so that it's a fee-for-service opportunity, so that you don't think we're just there looking to push insurance or an annuity or something. So I think that's what's been working for us the best. I think it gives other people more value because they know what they're getting, and they feel like they're actually purchasing something rather than just sitting there wondering, all right, what's going to happen now? What fees am I charging, or how is he going to get me to move my money?
Yeah, and that's well said. So during that first initial meeting with these folks, we sent out a checklist, and these people came in with a folder of the information we requested, and that works the best, because the more information that we know, the better equipped we are to help them in the long run. So looking through the pension, this lady actually, when it turns out she had already made the election, and she was very nervous when she came in, I could tell. On the phone, she didn't really give it up that she had made the election, because I thought maybe she was just maybe a little embarrassed that she did it without contacting anybody. So went through all the different options, and she took the basic option, and under the pension options that she had, it could be based on her life, it could be based on hers and her husband's life. There was a couple of options in between, but she saw the word basic and thought, okay, that's the basic one, and that's the one that everybody takes, or everybody should sort of consider. So we got to looking at the numbers, and it turns out that she took the one that paid her the highest amount of monthly benefit, but if she passed away, it went away. Her husband would be left without any income, and she had worked 30-some years for this company, and had accrued all these benefits. And the truth of the matter was, is if she left that pension option the way it was, then she took a payment and passed away, her husband would basically be left without anything. And that was a big deal, because her husband did not have a pension. He has Social Security, but he did not have any sort of pension. So Ryan and I looked at the numbers, and it turns out that since she had just was before retirement, she had the option to, there was a window where she could make changes. So we went through and looked at all the different options. Again, in the first meeting, we don't make any recommendations, like Ryan said. We're just gathering information, but we told her, hey, well, let's get all this stuff together. Since you have a quick turnaround time, we want to get back with you in about a week to make sure that, if you do need to make a change, we can go ahead and do that. So Ryan, what other information did we gather in that meeting so that we were able to sort of help her along with this pension?
Also, I think it's a good time to mention that this is where we always stress to make sure that people are telling us what they're thinking about doing rather than coming in and saying, this is what I've done, can you help me get out of this? Sometimes we can and sometimes we can't. So if there's anything that we can stress, it's to it's tough to know that you're going to call somebody and possibly pay a couple $100, but remember, if you're just picking up the phone and calling a few advisors, they can't just send you a bill unless they have your name and your address. I would get rid of the fear and just try to call somebody, at least try to find somebody nice enough to answer, talk to you for 10 minutes or so with situations like this. You don't always necessarily need a full-fledged financial plan, but if you're going to make a big step in life, I strongly suggest that you get somebody to look at what you're doing. Now, in terms of the information that we were gathering, I know it's important to look at all their other assets to see what they have, where all the other income is coming from, how many children they have, their life expectancy of their parents and their husband, and how everything they think is going to play out, because what most people are thinking is, let me make as much money as possible because it'll help us pay our bills, it'll help us prepare for retirement. But like you said, Colin, if that person passes away, then the pension's gone, and now we're really doing some serious planning,
right.
and that gets into the serious, scary planning portion, where the husband comes in and says, hey, I just lost $35,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. How do I make this up? And
right.
At that point, then we're really just we're digging deep to try to find anything we can do to help this guy.
Right, and in this process, in addition to the pension, so we looked at all those numbers, we also did a deep dive into their Social Security. The husband was already collecting Social Security, so he was pretty well set. And her questions were, should I collect Social Security now, or is there a way to maybe get more benefit if I wait until later? There's a very small window of opportunity. They changed the Social Security laws a couple of years ago, but there are certain folks that fall into the old rules. And it turns out these people fell into the old rules. They had no idea that they fell into the old rules. So again, one of the things we'll do when we go back and make recommendations to them is give them the options of, okay, here's if you take it under the new rules, here's if you take it under the old rules. And if we can build sort of that income plan using the Social Security and using her pension, along with all the other information that we gathered as far as their investments and stuff, and all their other accounts, then having it written out and on a spreadsheet or a piece of paper in front of them really helps make a decision, as opposed to just trying to add numbers up in your head. So that's what we were able to do. Now, they also had a twist that we didn't know about. And and again, that's why we like to do these initial first date type meetings, because on the phone in 5 or 10 minutes, people just tell you what their immediate concern is. They don't do anything behind that. And in our initial meeting that takes 60 to 90 minutes, it turns out that they had a child, 30-year-old son living at home who has autism, and he will never live on his own. And they had no plans in place to provide for that in the event that either one of them or both of them, aren't able to care for them. So Ryan and I, again, we hear stuff like this and our ears perk up. We're like, okay, here's another whole set of circumstances that we need to deal with. One of the immediate things that we noticed was when we were going through their investment statements was on one of their accounts, they had this child or their grown son on there as a beneficiary. And their son was receiving government benefits and could only have a certain amount of assets, and if he had over that, then his government benefits would be taken away. So right away that sends up a red flag to us, and we know that, hey, they really, and it's not their fault, they just haven't gone down the road of how to plan for the next 30 years of their life, and if they're not around, how is their son going to take care of himself? So we really want to dive into that and make sure, hey, let's look at all the beneficiaries now and make sure we're reviewing that. And Ryan, we see that a lot with beneficiaries. We see ex-wives, parents that have passed away, kids that have passed away or they're estranged. I mean, beneficiary review is a big portion of that.
And you can remember, actually, a separate case study of where we were helping somebody who was getting ready for insurance. All they wanted was insurance. That's all we were talking about. And even after we went through our meeting process, it seemed to be really the only thing on their mind. Well, they went to go for the beneficiary, and the thing I realized, then they had a special needs child. So later, fast forward 6 months down the road, helping her with her choosing a 401k option. And she went to put her child back as a beneficiary again and put it right back on there. That's the first thing I saw, and I said, well, hold on, make sure, I don't think they had a trust yet, but they were still, it just shouldn't go to the child. It's just gonna knock her out of benefits. It's not gonna do her any good. They're gonna have to do some moving around, some estate planning anyway. So I think we keep pushing estate planning on them, not to be annoying, but to make sure that they have all their ducks in a row.
Right.
But it just goes to show how easy it is to slip your mind.
Right.
You're filling out paperwork, you put your children down, and I think we see that too much, to be honest.
Yeah, and we can do the best financial plans in the world, and we think we do a pretty good job of it, but in the end, if we don't know all the information, or there's a wild card out there where the grandparents maybe are leaving money to the child, or there is that wild card as far as the beneficiary out there, it could pretty much wipe out a year's worth of work that we do to help people get to where they want to go, just because either we don't know about it, they don't tell us about it. Hopefully we're asking the right questions, or maybe just something happens along the way where incidentally they make a change and don't let us in on it. So the whole idea behind our initial process we call the complete planning review is over that 2-meeting process. We're not going to get, we're not getting everything done, and we're not going to get a detailed financial plan done, but we're going to have enough information where we're going to be able to say, okay, these are the 10 things you need to do, and these are the 5 things you really need to do, and put it in a timeline, and also let you know, hey, we can help you with these 5, here's the other people that can help you with the other 5, or here's how you can even do it on your own. We're big on, if we meet with somebody and they're a do-it-yourselfer, we're not trying to take anything off of your plate, but we at least want to give you our professional expertise and say, hey, to do it on your own, here are the right steps to take, and come back to us and let us take a look. If you did it on your own, we'll make sure you did it right. We're not trying to make everybody a client. We're not trying to gather every dollar that we meet with as assets that we manage. We want to provide good financial advice so that the folks that we meet with, we leave them better off than before they came in the door. So Ryan, we also did a fair amount of work with these folks as far as looking at their investments. We looked at, they had a bunch of different IRAs and 401ks and accounts like that. What sort of information were we able to gather? And I know this is sort of putting you on the spot because we didn't even rehearse this before we did this, but what did we find out, and how might we be able to help them without specifically getting into the nuts and bolts of it? I mean, how did their risk tolerance match up with what they had?
No, sure, and that's one thing that why we like to do our digging is because we want to make sure everything that we know about you, and when we talk to you, sometimes we can get a different feel of how your risk tolerance is versus what we see on paper. And I think I felt in this case that they were a little bit risky. Looking at their investments, obviously we want to look at what's in retirement, what's not, what are they looking to grow, what's accessible, and where they are in their lives. So in this case, since she was retiring, you don't really want to take a big hit, you don't want to be too risky, you don't need 100% stocks. So we're really looking at making sure that people are comfortable with where they are, and they're in the position where the money's not going to go down, and they're not going to have an 08 situation where they're losing 40% and then they have to make it up in an amount of time that they don't have left.
Right.
So it's up to us to make sure we put them in something that we know that they're comfortable with, but as financial advisors, we're also saying this money is going to last you for this amount of time. So
Right.
that's really a back and forth conversation with the clients to say, what can you tolerate? And based on the goals, based on your vacations, based on your lifestyle, this is what we think you should do, and this is the percentage we think you should shoot for.
Right. And it's a mindset change because these folks have spent the last 35 years of their life building up to this point of saving all this money, and now it's, what do I do with it? I'm going to start taking income from it, and do I invest the same now as I did, say, 10 years ago, or do I, is there something I need to do? And it's our job to sort of feel that out. And, typically what we find is between a husband and a wife, the wife is the more conservative out of the two because she's the smarter one. She doesn't want to lose the money,
Right.
and the husband is the one that's, thinks he knows more than he does normally. And I'm like that in my marriage too. So, it's not a knock against anybody we meet, but we think we know more and we think we can do better than everybody else, but swallow a little pride and meet halfway in the middle, or maybe even all the way over to the other side where the wife is, and be a little conservative. You can always go more aggressive, but once a correction hits or there is a loss, then that creates more of a problem than most people want to deal with. So we go through, again, we went through the pension with these folks, we went through Social Security, we went through their investment risk, we went through beneficiary review, and the last thing we hit on was legal planning. And we're not attorneys, we don't do that kind of planning, but we know about it, and we know folks to refer to. And these folks, they didn't have an updated will. It turns out that they probably would be very good candidates for a special needs trust for their grown son, because if he's never going to be able to take care of himself and live independently, there's going to need to be something in place when they're gone. And we're all going, so it's not a matter of if we're going, it's when. And so we needed to get in place some legal documents, and we referred them to a local attorney. And once they get those documents drawn up, we will work closely with the attorney to make sure that the trust is funded correctly, and the right assets are set up, and the beneficiaries are done the right way, and just sort of wrap everything up. So the end result of all this is, we did give these folks the We Can Help version, and then we gave them the Do-It-Yourself version. And I think they're going to do a little bit of each. We're more than happy to do it all. We're more than happy to be involved as much as clients want to be. But our thought was, or not our thought, but our process leads us to, we feel really good about leaving these people better off than they were before they met with us. And we can't guarantee investment performance. We can't guarantee, that what we do or what we say is 100% going to work all the time. But again, just the mere fact of taking a beneficiary and changing it, and making that pension election and helping them with Social Security, I mean, that amounts to working out to be a lot more stability and a lot more retirement income over the long term for these folks. So Ryan, what else? I think that pretty much goes through the case study. Anything else we can add to sort of close things up here?
And one thing I actually noticed was, and one thing I've actually seen a lot, is a lot of people who are getting to retire who are actually too safe. And I wasn't sure if that is even a real term to you. When I see somebody who's getting ready to retire, I know they don't want their money to go down, but when I see it in 100% fixed, do you feel, again, not to put you on the spot, do you feel that's a comfortable time to tell them, why don't we fight back against inflation a little bit, or do you feel that we should just let their risk tolerance take over and kind of leave everything in fixed like it should be?
Well, a couple of things there, Ryan. It's that's where the financial plan comes into play. And again, our process leads us to, we don't do any investment recommendations till about the 4th or 5th meeting. We want to really dig in and learn about the risk tolerance and learn about how much income they want to take, if any, and how much money they might want to leave behind, and match all that stuff up, and then come up with an overall plan, and that plan will dictate how much risk needs to be taken. And if that plan tells us that, we're right in line with it, then fine. If that plan says, okay, these people are still uncomfortable taking that much risk, we can always scale it back and say, okay, instead of, but then the numbers are going to have to change. You might not be able to leave as much money behind as you want to, or you might have to take a little bit less income, or you might have to wait a little bit longer, maybe work another year, or push Social Security out. So again, the plan is, if you can think of like an operating system of a computer, I mean, the plan is the operating system of the computer. You can put any program you want on there. It doesn't mean you have to use it. The programs are we liken those to the different investments and insurance policies and asset classes and things. But we really want to make sure that operating system is up and running and strong. We can always come back and adjust the programs and make sure that we put on there what we need and take off what we don't need. So long-winded answer to your question, but I think that does it. So if you have any questions about financial planning, about how our process works, if you're working with an advisor, make sure it's process related if that's what you want. If you're just looking to buy a mutual fund or buy an annuity or buy a stock or whatever, then that's fine.